Morning, YouTube. Leafs game last night, as I mentioned in my previous video, unfolded, and they were home to the New Jersey Devils, worst team in their conference, after the Leafs had lost 3 games in a row for the first time in a while. And it went really well until the third period. Not that they lost or anything, but the first period was pretty much a work of art by the Leafs. They did a really good job eliminating any good chances by New Jersey. The Devils didn't have that many shots in the first period, and the Leafs did a really good job of keeping them to the outside and not giving them anything really in the middle and any grade A kind of chances. And in the meantime, they went out, played their possession game, and scored 3 goals. The first one was a nice little tip by Tavares in front of the net that eluded Deming. After that, some good work down low of jarring the puck loose by Spezza. It got fed out front to Gauthier, who did a little skate around and wristed one home for a 2-0 lead. And then after that, it was another tip in front on the power play by Hyman, who was kind of like in the process of being shoved over, and he kind of jumped and tipped it while he was kind of falling down, which was really impressive. So there's your 3-0 first period lead. Second period, Leafs came out, more of the same. Nylander scored early on a nice little kind of half pass, half shot by Engvall right at the side of the net. He just had to redirect it in, and it was 4-0. The Devils would strike back for 1, making it 4-1, but it was still like whatever at that point. And then later on, the Leafs would score in the period and make it 5-1, restoring their 4-goal lead. And that one was a Matthews power play goal, and it was pretty sweet. It was Marner kind of walked off the right point with it and kind of faked a slap shot and then just fed it to Matthews, who had curled behind the net and come out the other side. And he didn't even shoot it. He just kind of let it redirect off his stick. He chose the right angle, and into the net it went. And after the 5th goal, that's when they pulled Deming and put in Corey Schneider, who I've never been a big Schneider fan. He had all this potential attached to him when he was Luongo's backup in Vancouver, but he never had that big of a body of work. It reminds me of Bernier, who was Los Angeles' backup for so many years, and everybody's like, he's the best starter not starting in the NHL. And then he came to Toronto and he was, in and out, kind of, no consistency. And some guys are just really good backups, but they can't run with the puck in a starting role. And that was always my read on Corey Schneider, and I never kind of believed the hype on him. And so this was his first action since November. His last win was, I think, last March or something, they said. So he's been down in the American League and stuff like that. But the Leafs didn't take it easy on him either. They popped a couple more. Actually, only one on him because one was an empty net. But anyways, after Matthews made it 5-1 in the second, the Leafs came out in the third, and then Matthews added another one pretty soon after. Another great kind of deceptive move by Marner, who then slipped him the pass, and Schneider had no chance on it. And that made it 6-1 at this point. And then suddenly, in the third period, this is typical of most teams in the league. You get a lead that big, and then you stop your attack. You stop skating. You just kind of sit back, try to defend the lead, which is the worst thing you can do. The Leafs are a really good possession team. They've got tons of skill up front. The natural reaction is to sit back and just run the timeout and defend. But in reality, the best defense is just to continue that offense and keep the puck in their end and keep the pace up. But they didn't do that, and New Jersey scored 3 goals in the third period, which cut it to 6-4. So it was getting kind of dicey, and then they got a late power play, so they pulled the goalie, and so the Leafs had to scramble around a bit, but eventually Matthews found it just in front of the red line and risked an icing call by shooting it on net, and he got the goal, and that was his first hat trick, believe it or not, since his very first game 4 years ago or whatever, when he scored 4 goals in the opening, his very first NHL game against Ottawa. So, which a very surprising stat that he hasn't had a hat trick since then, because he scores a pile of goals. But yeah, so other than the third period collapse, which didn't cost them the game, but they fell back into some bad defensive habits after being so good in the first 2 periods. So it didn't cost them the game, like I said, but it is something for them to, keep in the back of their minds that this is the worst team in our conference, and we let them back into it with 3 goals in the third period. Like, that can't happen. So that'll be something for them to work on. But either way, it was an impressive victory with lots of skill, lots of possession, and even more so when they've had a ton of injuries. Andreas Jansson's back in the lineup now, but they still have a few forwards out. But they found out recently that Riley blocked a shot with his foot and broke his foot, and he's supposed to be out for 8 weeks, and he's their top defenseman. So that's a huge gap to fill. And with Muzzin already out, they've had Marincin up to take his place. So now they called up one of their young Swedes, Sandin, who played last night, and he looked really, really good. He won top defenseman award at the World Juniors recently, and he's just very competent in everything he does. So on the 2 goals that were tips in the first period in front of the net, he was the one that kind of floated the shots in on net, and picked up a couple of assists in his first game up. So that was very impressive. And then on the defense too, because their top guy was out, it really elevated some other guys to play a lot more minutes. And like Marincin had a lot bigger role. Dermott, they really popped him up quite a bit. So and everybody responded pretty well. So it's nice to see that they can do that when you lose a couple of your top guys, and you can still get the job done and raise your game a little bit, I guess. So yeah, so overall I think that was a pretty good game. A couple things they probably want to work on and remind everybody of, but nice to get back in the win column, and hopefully this is the start of another little run, because now the standings are starting to get really, really cluttered, and an extended losing streak at this point in the year with the standings that close together could cost you a playoff spot easily, or put you further down the list in the playoff order where you don't want to be. So it's going to be a real dogfight the rest of the season, I feel. So yeah, here's hoping, fingers crossed, and no more injuries. That's all I ask, is no more injuries. It's been a crazy year for injuries, and I mean, like I said, last 3 years they've been so lucky. They've hardly lost anybody for any significant amount of time, and so all of those good fortune years, I think, are coming back to bite them in the ass this year, because it seems every game somebody goes down with something. So but that's a sign of a good team too, is that they can battle through this shit. So battle through a coach they were starting to hate on at the start of the year, and a firing, and a new coach implementing his style, and all these injuries they're battling through too, and they're still one of the top teams in their division. So overall you got to be impressed with where they're at right now, considering everything that's happened this year. So we'll see what happens. And next game up, I think they have the Flames, and I wish the Leafs had a tough guy, because I would love to see somebody ragdoll Tkachuk again. Zach Cassian for Prime Minister, I say, because I cannot stop watching him beat the shit out of Matthew Tkachuk. That's like the best part of my 2020 so far, and I know it's early, but I have a feeling when December 31st, 2020 rolls around, it's still going to be one of my top moments, if not the top moment. So that is what it is. I could go on for hours about what a prick family the Tkachuks are, and but maybe I'll save that for another time. But it brought me a lot of joy watching that happen. So and last night brought me a lot of joy with the Leafs win. So all in all, great day. Have a good one.